Scent of popcorn, gasoline, and the faint sweetness of soda syrup spilled on asphalt. The small-town drive-in theater was alive that night, glowing like a beacon on the edge of the woods. Rows of cars filled the lot, headlights flicking on and off as families and groups of friends jockeyed for a good view of the giant white screen that loomed over them like a watchful guardian. The laughter of teenagers mixed with the hum of engines and the crackle of the speakers, each one carrying the muffled sound of the movie. It was the kind of evening that seemed timeless, the kind that etched itself into memory, not because anything extraordinary happened, but because it felt so safe, so ordinary. Among the crowd was a group of 4 friends who had been inseparable since junior high. They piled into an old Chevy, windows rolled down, the trunk stuffed with snacks and blankets. Their voices rose above the din as they teased one another, flicked popcorn at each other, and leaned out of the car windows to shout greetings to classmates parked in other rows. To them, it was just another night of freedom, another chance to laugh until their stomachs hurt and pretend the real world didn't exist. As the previews rolled, the drive-in's lights dimmed and the chatter of the crowd softened into an expectant hush. The friends settled in, passing around candy bars and soda cans, kicking their feet up on the dashboard. The flickering glow from the screen washed over their faces, painting them in shifting shades of blue, red, and white. They whispered jokes during the slower parts of the movie and jumped during the louder scenes, clutching each other's arms and then laughing it off. The night seemed endless, a perfect snapshot of youth caught between childhood and adulthood. But as the film neared its climax, something subtle began to change. Cars in the back rows began to leave early, their headlights briefly blinding those who remained. Engines roared to life, tires crunched over gravel, and one by one, families trickled out, their taillights vanishing into the darkness beyond the theater gates. The lot grew thinner, quieter. The laughter that had filled the air only an hour ago was reduced to scattered whispers, the occasional cough, the low static hum of the outdoor speakers. When the credits finally rolled, only a handful of cars remained. The massive projector shut down with a deep metallic click, plunging the lot into near-total darkness. A few vehicles flickered their headlights and began to pull out. The manager, a tired man in a faded uniform shirt, slowly made his rounds, glancing between cars as he collected trash and waved to the last stragglers. But the Chevy never moved. It sat there in its row, quiet, its windows dark. To anyone glancing from afar, it seemed like the friends were simply taking their time, maybe cleaning up the mess of wrappers and soda cans, or waiting for traffic to thin out before driving home. Yet minutes stretched into half an hour, and still the car did not stir. The lot emptied until only the Chevy remained, its silhouette dim beneath the towering white screen. The manager eventually approached, muttering about kids who liked to sneak booze or cigarettes after the show. But when he tapped on the window, no one answered. The interior was empty. The doors were unlocked, the seats still warm. On the dashboard sat an unfinished bag of popcorn, a soda can tipped on its side, dripping onto the floor mat. The blankets from the trunk were crumpled on the back seat as if tossed aside in a hurry. The keys were still in the ignition. By dawn, the Chevy was towed to the local station, and word spread quickly through the town. The friends had vanished, leaving behind only the eerie stillness of an empty car. Parents called. In panic, neighbors whispered, and rumors bloomed like wildfire. Some claimed they had seen the group leaving together on foot, heading toward the tree line behind the theater. Others swore there had been a strange vehicle lurking near the back rows, its headlights extinguished, its driver a shadowy figure no one recognized. The police searched the grounds that morning, combing the gravel lot, the woods beyond, and even the shallow creek that trickled not far from the property. They found nothing. No footprints in the dirt, no signs of a struggle, no evidence at all that could explain how 4 young people could vanish in the span of minutes. The drive-in reopened the following weekend as if nothing had happened. Families brought their children, teenagers lined up at the concession stand, and the giant white screen once again glowed in the night. But for those who remembered that night, the laughter and the music carried a darker echo. Every flicker of headlights seemed suspicious, every shadow between the cars held the weight of fear. The Chevy was gone, but its absence remained, a hollow space in the rows where once 4 friends had sat, alive and laughing. The night of their disappearance would forever linger in the air of that little town, a wound that refused to heal, and the drive-in would never again feel as safe as it once did. especially in small towns where life felt suffocating, and there was always talk of kids sneaking off to the city for adventure. But this was different. The car had been left behind, belongings scattered inside, and none of the four had so much as hinted they were planning to leave. Parents flooded the police station, voices breaking, demanding answers. Flyers with the smiling faces of the missing friends were printed by the hundreds and plastered on every wall, window, and telephone pole. Their eyes stared back from grocery store bulletin boards, gas station doors, and the front windows of homes, a reminder of what had been stolen in a single night. Detectives swarmed the drive-in for weeks. They searched the lot inch by inch, questioned staff, dragged the nearby creek, and canvassed the roads leading in and out of town. They found nothing. No fingerprints that didn't belong to the friends. No signs of forced entry. No abandoned belongings beyond the half-finished snacks left in the car. As far as the evidence was concerned, the group had simply vanished into the night air. That summer stretched into fall, and with each passing week, the case grew colder. Whispers replaced headlines, theories replaced facts. At the diner, old men hunched over their coffee muttered about cult activity in the woods. Teenagers swore they saw figures moving near the abandoned quarry at night. Parents told their children not to go near the lake, afraid something lurked beneath the surface. Some insisted it had been an accident, that the friends had gone for a swim and drowned, carried away by currents too strong for anyone to find them. Others were certain something darker had happened, something orchestrated. The families clung to hope at first, calling radio shows, pleading on television, organizing search parties that combed fields and barns for miles. But hope has a way of wearing thin when days become months. Birthdays passed without candles, Christmas mornings without gifts. Bedrooms remained untouched, waiting for their owners to come home, but dust settled where laughter used to live. By the third year, the missing friends had become part of the town's identity. Children grew up hearing the story whispered around campfires. Teenagers dared each other to sneak into the drive-in after midnight, convinced that the ghosts of the vanished lingered there, forever caught in that summer night. The drive-in itself carried the weight of the tragedy. Attendance dwindled. Families avoided it, too unsettled to sit in the same rows where the Chevy had been found. The owner tried promotions, free popcorn, even live music before the show, but the seats remained empty. The business withered until finally, one summer evening, the projector flickered off for the last time. The tall white screen stood alone in the field, rust streaking its surface, a monument to something the town would rather forget. Time did what it always does. It dulled the edges of grief, blurred the details of memory. By the mid-90s, the case was officially labeled inactive. The files gathered dust in a cabinet, occasionally reopened when a rumor surfaced, then closed again when nothing came of it. The families grew tired of pleading, their voices raw from years of shouting into silence. The pain remained, but it became quieter, folded into everyday life like a scar no one could hide but everyone learned to live with. Still, the mystery never left. New residents who moved to town heard the story within weeks, sometimes from neighbors, sometimes from their own children who had picked it up on the playground. The vanished friends became a legend, woven into the fabric of the town's history like a curse. People speculated endlessly. Some swore the drive-in was built on cursed ground. Others said the police had known more than they revealed, that there had been a cover-up to protect someone powerful. A few whispered that the friends had been taken far away, perhaps trafficked, perhaps silenced. The theories shifted with each retelling, but the truth remained buried. By the late 90s, the town had changed. The economy slowed, shops closed, and the younger generation left in search of work. The drive-in stood abandoned, weeds breaking through the asphalt, its lot silent except for the occasional rustle of wind. The giant screen loomed in the distance like a watchful ghost, a relic of better times. Kids sneaking in dared each other to touch the screen or sit in the exact spot where the Chevy had once been parked. Some swore they felt cold there, others claimed they heard laughter echoing faintly in the night, as if the missing had never really left. 12 years passed in this way, the legend growing larger than the real people who had disappeared. Their names were remembered, but their faces blurred in memory. What happened to them became less a question of fact and more a story told in hushed voices, a reminder that safety was fragile, that even on an ordinary summer night, the ground could vanish beneath you. The families never stopped waiting, though hope had hardened into something bitter. The case files slept in silence, and the town convinced itself the mystery would never be solved. It wasn't until 2002, when divers descended into the cold, murky depths of the lake nearby, that the silence finally cracked and the past began to rise.